Okay, these lecture notes will be for both weeks 7 and 8. We're going to be reading the dark Romanticism stories of Hawthorne, and then next week for Poe. So this will serve as both this week and next week's lecture notes, or the next week's lecture notes. So I just want to talk a little bit about American Gothic, or dark Romanticism, which is also known. So it became popular in America about the same time as Transcendentalism, which, if you remember when we talked about Transcendentalism, this is completely the opposite of that idea. Whereas Transcendentalism is looking inside yourself and relying on yourself and that kind of thing, this is like completely outside of that scope. So, like the Romantics, Gothic writers focus more on emotion, imagination over reason and logic. We got that with the Puritan literature, a lot more of the reason and logic, but this is more about the emotion and imagination, very similar to Romanticism. But they often focus on the Puritan history and ideals. The concepts of slavery and the idea that the world is not this perfect place, this utopic place, like it had been kind of painted out to be in literature and history, really, of the past. So characteristics of American Gothic or dark Romanticism: it's going to have a dark, mysterious, or even evil tone. You're probably going to have an isolated setting, away from, or it's like, could be self-isolation as well, isolating yourself from society, or an isolated setting itself. Mysterious disappearances and reappearances, the influence of supernatural, paranormal occurrences. Religion and spirituality. There could be blood, pain, or death in dark Romanticism. Cruelty. Characters often have mental and or physical issues that can be insanity. They could be physically deformed. The events that happen are uncanny, macabre, which means that they are horrifying in a weird way. Like, you're not really... you're more astonished, I guess, than scared in macabre. Are melodramatically violent, and it's going to always border between what's real and what is not real. Okay, stories often have a moral or a lesson to teach. Parables, allegories, quite popular in this genre. Okay, so it evokes terror instead of horror versus horror. And so horror is described distinctly. It's something grotesque, it's appalling, it's unrealistic, and it's an awful apprehension, whereas terror is suggestive. It's suggestive of something terrifying or horrible. It has a sickening realization instead of an apprehension. It really depends on the reader's imagination, the level of terror that you feel. There's a sense of uncertainty always, and it creates a intangible atmosphere of dread. There's usually going to be a helpless victim that's fascinated with a powerful victimizer. The victim could be imprisoned, whether that is of a prison of their own making or a physical prison of some sort. The characters often hold the ability to pull on our sympathies and frighten us at the same time. Gothic authors believed that people were tempted to sin and were capable of both good and evil, which they must face and fight, but they ultimately fail. The two famous American Gothic writers or dark Romanticism writers that we're going to be looking at are Hawthorne, who is this gent right here. Most of his works focused on history, morality, and religion. Poe's work, he was a little more dark and twisty. He focused more on the depravity of humans, more than supernatural or monsters. That the monsters were the people themselves, and the world didn't need fictional monsters, because the monster lies within humans. And obsession and madness are two really popular themes in his works, two central ideas.